If you're a real estate agent and you're tired of cold calling, door knocking, and spending money on ads, then subscribe to this podcast. We discuss leveraging the power of YouTube for your real estate business and how these strategies earned us over $1 million in GCI our first year in real estate. My name is Levi Lascsak and my partner is Travis Plumb. Let's get started.
And welcome to Passive Prospecting, YouTube for Real Estate. And we are, today's a little off topic, I would say. Today's a little off topic because we are going to be talking about health is wealth. And this is something that, I think in order to enjoy your wealth, you have to have your health. And if you're not taking care of your health, then it's going to make every other aspect in your life very difficult. And I've experienced this firsthand from being completely bedridden and disabled at 33 years old. And that was, seems like a lifetime ago, but that was just 10 years ago. But a little bit on the backstory of that and how that all, was put into perspective for me and why, health has become a focal point of my life and my journey. And if you struggle, with things in your business right now, this is something that you want to do this check on yourself, I would say, is to make sure that your health is first and foremost, because you want a clean mind, a clean body, a clean spirit, all of that to be able to help you perform in the tip-top conditions that you're capable of doing in your work, in your business. And if you are struggling, in your business, then that might be the first place you start. A lot of times we'll look for problems in our business, but, maybe we're missing something in our, in our physical, mental, or spiritual being right there. And so we want to evaluate that first. And that gets down to eating better, sleeping better, exercising, staying healthy. And that way we can be the best we can be. But for me, growing up in Stephenville, Texas, very small country town, very traditional way of life, and which was really, eat whatever it was. But we would eat, we grew up on barbecue, brisket, all that good stuff. I remember, we ate cereal every morning for breakfast, but then I would eat lunch at school, and then my parents, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. She cooked every single meal. Like, we never went out, never ever went out except Sundays after church, and we would eat pizza. We'd go to the pizza place, and that was our big dining out experience. And we just grew up in a very humble and, I would say, not a lot of money. Let's just say that. So, all my shopping was done at garage sales for my clothes. I never had a brand new pair of shoes on the first day of school. Everything that I did buy either came from my two older brothers or, from garage sales. I remember that vividly on Saturday mornings. And sometimes that's what we would do if, to get back to school, is we'd go to garage sales to get my new clothes for the year. And never went to a mall, never went to a retail shopping store, none of that. But otherwise, we didn't really grow up on a lot of junk food, which is good, except for, I would say, cereal. I think cereal is a huge issue, but we won't go down that rabbit hole necessarily. But, otherwise, I drink milk all the time. We would go through a gallon of milk a day. I know that. But anyways, never really took much never took into consideration. But whenever I was a teenager, I did have really bad acne, and that started plaguing me around 14. Could never really pinpoint what that was for, or why that happened. Now, you fast forward and you move into the military. When I left out of high school and went into the military, and of course in the military, there's not a lot of healthful food there either, especially whenever everything there is provided for free. So, I grew up never even considering nutrition, my health, anything like that. Just always ate whatever. As soon as I was old enough, I loved drinking beer. That was always a fun thing for me to do. And that was the drink of choice, especially in the early 20s, in the military. It's like you got to go out and have some beers. But all of that, I don't know if it really started to take a turn is whenever I got deployed to Iraq. And still, even to that day, I was, 24 years old at the time. I was still having some issues with acne. It wasn't as bad, but I was able to get it mostly under control. But, when we got deployed to Iraq, that was something that, a very stressful environment. And again, we got over there, and it was actually the best military food I'd ever eaten in my life, because we had civilians cooking for us, not military personnel. And so it was interesting because the civilians were contractors, and they were paid quite a bit of money. I think their starting salaries over there were like $100,000 tax-free. So they were happy to be there, just cooking up some meals for us. And so they made some amazing food. But I remember my mind over there, my mindset was, this could be the last day of my life, so therefore I'm just going to enjoy every single meal, which is not, I would say, not a good way to look at things. Not a good way to, not a good way to, it's just not a good way to look at things. But the lunch guy really made these amazing burgers, these barbecue burgers. And so every day for lunch, sometimes dinner, because they were just so good. I mean, that was my go-to. I'd be like, hey, let me get one of those barbecue burgers. He'd grill it up. I don't know, his special barbecue sauce on there, big bun, everything on there. So, and I would go through there and probably get French fries to go with it. And at the end of the chow hall, we had a ice cream station. I think it was Baskin Robbins or something, an ice cream station. And I would I'm pretty sure, eat ice cream every day. So burger, fries, ice cream every day. And, at 24, you're not really thinking about that sort of thing. And you're thinking food is food, right? You're not thinking about carbs or gluten or, ice cream, sugar, fat, all of that stuff. I'm just not thinking of it, never even considered it. And so every day, burgers, fries, and ice cream. And because that's what I was thinking. I'm like, I'm going to enjoy this meal because it could be the last meal. Well, within about 2 months inside of country, that's whenever I started having really bad digestive issues. And so could it have been that? Possibly. Yep. Could have been stress. Sure. Environment. Yep. Absolutely. Whenever we'd go out, if we didn't have access to the chow hall, then we had to eat our meals either meals ready to eat, MREs they call them, which are, I don't believe, any nutritional value at all whatsoever, because that's something that can live on the shelf for 30 years. I mean, a lot of people put MREs in their bomb shelters or storage or things like that. I mean, the amount of preservatives and everything that goes into those to keep them edible for 25 years is amazing. So, but that was like a common meal, especially out in the field in the military, because it's in a little pack, fits in your backpack, and that was the go-to. It was made up of about 2,000 calories. So if you only got to eat once a day, that meal ready to eat was there to serve as your full meal for the day. And it was always like a little entree, kind of like spaghetti and meatballs, or I don't know, chicken soup or something in a little bag. And anyways, you could heat it up, and then it had extra something in there, and then it always had a candy. It was funny because we'd trade stuff. You'd open up your bag, and then everybody would start trading stuff. Oh, there was a bag of Skittles or pound cake, or always a dessert in there. So again, if we're out and about, that's what we had to live off of there either, but never even considered that, never even thought about if that was healthy or not. It was just, that's what was given to us, and that's what was provided. Now, the other thing is before we deployed, I got about 10, maybe 12 vaccines in a row as well. I mean, they just lined us up, and they put 5 or 6 in one arm, 5 or 6 in the other arm, switched up arms because we got so many shots to deploy. Looking back now, could that have been something to do with it? Maybe. I don't know. I think what I found later on in my life was I'm an A blood type. A blood type is, if you've ever looked at blood type diet, That is the vegetarian style diet. And so we typically have lower stomach acid, lower immune systems, things like that. So just getting a whole lot of vaccines at once could have compromised my immune system there as well. And but I don't know. But I just know within a couple of months of being in Iraq, started to have digestive issues, started to mess with me. Went to see one of the military doctors there, and they were kind of like, don't worry about it, no big deal. All right, so I came home, from after a year, and I was still having problems on and off, in and out of remission. And then from there, it took about 4 years because I was also stubborn and, a guy and military and everything like that. I really didn't want to go to the doctor, but, and it would come and go. But by about 4 years later, it got bad enough to where I finally went to see a doctor and got diagnosed. And that's where they did diagnose me with ulcerative colitis. And ulcerative colitis is similar to Crohn's disease, which is basically ulcers inside of your organs. Crohn's disease affects you from the esophagus down to your small intestine, and colitis is really concentrated in the large intestine. Allow me to take a quick break to remind you that we have very important links in the description below. If you want the full story of how we closed over $1 million in commissions our first year and over $2.3 million in commissions our second year, check out the first link. Also, you have the link to our #1 Amazon best-selling book, Passive Prospecting. Last, if you enjoy this podcast and you're a giving person, leave a 5-star review, please. Now back to the episode. So that's what I had, was diagnosed with colitis. Okay, well, what does the doctor say? Here's some medication. This is incurable, and you'll have this the rest of your life. That was the diagnosis. But stay on this medication unless anything progresses or becomes a problem. You let me know. But otherwise, here it is. Just take this medication forever. And no cure. And guess what? Diet doesn't matter. That's what the doctors told me. Diet doesn't matter. And again, at this time, I'm like, all right, well, cool. I guess sounds like a plan. That's it. And that's what I started to do. I was on medication, and, it helped me here and there. Not too much. Again, in and out of remission with the issues that I would have. And so, let me see. What was that? 2009, 2011. I believe is whenever I met my ex-wife. So I met her. We had met a few years earlier, and before I deployed, really. And so, but it had been about 5 years since we had talked, and we kind of reconnected. Facebook was kind of coming around at that time, at least for me. 2009, I think 2010 is whenever I finally opened an account. And sure enough, how you find those old people, the old people hanging around. I don't mean old people, but I mean old contacts, I should say. And it was funny, this this person that I'd met earlier and had spent a little time with, and then we reconnected on Facebook, and she was from Seattle. And then we got together. She moved down to the south. At this time, I was living in Louisiana because I was with the pharmaceutical company at that time, working with the pharma company. I'd just been promoted to the corporate office in Louisiana. So she moved to Louisiana, and this was the very first time I'd ever heard about natural food, organic food, gluten. I'd never even heard of that before. And, so of course, her being from Seattle, she was into all of that stuff. And started to teach me, oh, nope, I don't eat gluten. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I won't either. Wasn't a big deal to me. I wasn't looking to cut it out. But I know as soon as I cut it out, I felt better. There's a reason why people don't typically eat lasagna and pizza for lunch. Anybody ever say, hey, let's all go to lunch. We're going to go to get some lasagna. Most people will say, no, thank you. That's a little too heavy for me. Well, I just learned that was gluten. That's mainly gluten. That's all that stuff that's binding in there and holding you down. So it was, learn about all that. And that's whenever I started to look at juicing and eating better, cleaning up my diet and things like that. And from there, I thought that I really got the biggest relief from the issues I was having, more so than the medication. And eventually, after about a year of just kind of eating clean and juicing and other things, and I was able to get off of the medication. And so I was able to maintain remission with my colitis until 2013. So that worked for about 2 years. And then in 2013, all of a sudden, I still can't really pinpoint what exactly happened, but just one day I got completely ill. And I just knew something was off. Something was really bad. And sure enough, within 2 days later, I was in the hospital, completely dehydrated, just in terrible shape. And then by the end of that month, I had lost 50 pounds in that 1 month. And that made me bedridden. It disabled me. I was 33 years old, and it just completely shot my body. And next thing I know, I'm in the absolute worst pain in my life, and every single day was just horrific. And to lose that much weight inside of a month is extremely traumatic on your body. And so, I started to go to all these GI doctors again, 4 different GI doctors, and none of them could really get me better. They threw the kitchen sink at me with medications, steroids, IV antibiotics, multiple hospital stays. And it was just, nothing could get me better. And so they were like, okay, keep putting you on this medication, this one. It got to the point to where their next recommendation was to put me on Remicade, which Remicade's a low-dose chemo drug. Now, and I remember the one doctor specifically said, now, if this doesn't work, though, we're probably going to need to remove your colon. And that will cure you. If we remove your entire colon, that will cure you. And I'm like, well, how do I go to the bathroom? Well, we'll just give you a little baggie, a little colostomy bag. So that just sits outside your stomach, which is nice. And that's it, for the rest of your life, you'll have that. Of course, that's irreversible surgery right there. So it was like, holy cow. Well, hopefully this low-grade chemotherapy will work. But the interesting thing about that is I had to get a tuberculosis test before I can go on chemo to make sure that you don't have that. Well, the interesting part about getting a tuberculosis test is you have to be off of steroids for a couple of weeks. I think 2 weeks it was before I could get the tuberculosis test. And then, so that was the route I was considering, no other options, didn't know what to do. And so had to get off of steroids for a couple of weeks. Then once that happened, I got the tuberculosis test. And then I think that's like a 3-day window or something. Okay, I got cleared for that. And then they wanted to schedule my chemo treatments. And everything in my gut, as much as my gut was hurting, was telling me this is not right. This is not where we want to go. And I always say it was really God's grace that my brother, who was letting me die a slow death, this had been going on for 3 months now, he finally chimed in and called and said, hey, where you're located. He goes, I was riding the rodeo circuit. My brother used to ride bulls and saddle broncs. And he said, I was riding through there like 10 years ago and I saw this chiropractor. And I was like, a chiropractor? How's that going to help me? He said, well, he doesn't really do adjustments. He practices natural medicine. And so that was the interesting part. Something I never even considered. And of course, my ex was very familiar with this because coming from Seattle, just didn't know that was really available in our area. So we called up this chiropractor that my brother had seen 10 years earlier, didn't even know if he was still in practice or around or anything like that, but he was. And he does practice natural medicine, which depends on the state. That's not the case for every single state. Some states, they're only allowed to do adjustments. Some states, they're allowed to practice natural medicine. Can't prescribe medications or anything like that, but they can give you supplements. And so went to him, and the very first day I saw him, the first thing he told me, he did some tests on me, and he's like, oh, you've got a couple of parasites. And he picked that up immediately, which apparently none of the IV antibiotics or regular antibiotics or anything else, everything I took had not killed them off. So he was like, I'm going to give you some supplements to take, and we'll see if we can't kill these off within 2 weeks. That's what we need. And I was just thinking at that time, I was like, I don't know if I can make it 2 more weeks. That sounds terrible, but because this had been 3 months now, and 3 months of just excruciating pain. I just didn't think I was going to make it through any of that. Mentally, physically, I didn't think my body could handle any more of that pain. And sure enough, I walked out that day with 45 supplements. He wanted me to take 45 supplements a day because he was like, this is what you need. Not only do we need to kill parasites, but he's like, most of your organs are not functioning properly or trying to shut down, or he's like, so we got to get them supplemented, because at this time I couldn't hold in any nutrition. I couldn't hold in food or water or anything because my colon was so diseased that I couldn't absorb any nutrition. So I was completely malnourished, completely sleep deprived, and then on top of that I had zero appetite. Every time I drank water or ate something, I would end up in the bathroom. Couldn't hold it in. So then to take 45 pills would literally take me all day pretty much to choke those down. I couldn't even swallow. It didn't matter how much water I put in my mouth or anything. And it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. But I'd force down 45 pills a day. And for the next 2 weeks, it was absolutely a miracle, because right around the 2-week mark, all of a sudden the cramping and the pain and everything that had just been killing me every day just stopped. Like literally just stopped. And went back to see him, and he's like, yep. He goes, I'm not picking up the parasites anymore. I think we killed those off. He goes, I think that's what was really causing the cramps and all the pain and discomfort and everything else inside there. And he goes, you might be able to start healing now. And at that point, from there is where I gained my appetite back. And, because I wasn't in so much pain, I just was hungry. I was very hungry. And so to the point to where I started to eat probably 5,000 calories a day, and I didn't gain a single pound for 3 weeks. But I could eat, and I could actually hold in the food, and it didn't kill me. It didn't make me worse. I felt like I was getting more energy and feeling better, but did not gain a single pound for 3 weeks. I ate 2 breakfasts, 2 lunches, 2 dinners, snacks. I would wake up in the middle of the night and just be hungry. I mean, practically starving to death, and is what I felt like. I was just constantly eating, and the doctor was like, well, look, that's just your body trying to make up for lost time. He goes, it's consuming so much, it's probably burning all 5,000 calories, which is why you're not gaining weight. He goes, your body just needs to consume right now. The other weird thing was I started to crave coconut oil, which was weird because I just started to I could eat spoonfuls of coconut oil, which right now would completely gag me, make me sick. But I think also my body was so depraved, it just knew I needed that apparently. But I could take a scoop with a spoon and just eat it, and it tasted really good to me at the time. But again, I wouldn't recommend that now. But and I'd only eat a couple of spoonfuls a day, but that was, I guess, a good form of medicine for me. And sure enough, I saw 4 other natural doctors over the time. Ultimately, it took me about a year to recover. It took me a year to recover, 100% natural, 0 medication, 0 surgery. I still have all of my organs today. And it's been 10 years now. 10 years, and I've never had a single sign or symptom or issue related to that. And I haven't taken any medications. I haven't even taken Advil or Tylenol in the last 10 years, because I also know how damaging those are to your gut and all the new information that comes out about that stuff. But I've just refused to take any pharmaceutical grade medication since then. But the interesting part is that I haven't even had the cold or the flu in the last 10 years. I don't get sick. And one of the reasons I truly believe that is because of diet. And whenever I was coming back, I went on the blood type diet, which was one of the doctors recommended to me. And if you don't know your blood type, then it's hard to follow the blood type diet. But if you do know it, there's AB, and B, I guess, yeah, B blood types. So I'm an A, and that's where I learned I was a vegetarian. That is the vegetarian blood type. Or the O is the carnivore. The B's and the ABs are more game meat and dairy, which is interesting. But O's are carnivores and A's vegetarians, which was devastating to me because I thought I never want to give up meat or beef. I grew up on this stuff. Now, the interesting part is that I had dealt with acne from 14 years old up until 33. It wasn't as bad in my adult age, but I still had breakouts from time to time, which was strange to me. But the one thing I noticed was whenever I was sick and I had nothing in my system, as bad as I looked, I had the cleanest, purest complexion. Not a single blemish, and not a single blemish the whole time. Now, whenever I started to recover, not only was I craving coconut oil, but I was craving ground beef as well. And so I started to eat ground beef every day because I think my body just, again, wanted the protein and the fat. And then I started to break out again. Well, one of the doctors that I was meeting with started to tell me, he's like, well, look, you're an A blood type, which all that means is blood type diet is not a weight loss diet. It's more of a immune system diet. It's made to build up your immune system. So you're eating foods that are easily digested by your blood type. And what that means is that if you follow it 80% of the time, they say 80% of the time, you're going to keep your immune system functioning at a very high level. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. Well, guess what? All the meats, except chicken and turkey. Chicken and turkey are neutral, so it categorizes your foods into 3 categories, which is helpful, harmful, or neutral. Chicken and turkey are neutral, so it wasn't saying I had to be a full vegetarian, but also, instead of eating beef every day, maybe eat beef once a week. And that took me a little time to grasp because I was always, I love my beef, my brisket, my steak. And but the interesting thing is whenever I decided to cut that out and give it a try, my face immediately cleared up. And I think that's one of the byproducts is, again, blood type diet, which works well with your digestion, which works well with your immune system, was telling me that I don't digest meat, red meat as well, things that are really complicated to break down. My body just doesn't handle them as well. And then that could lead up to backup in your system. If you're not keeping things moving, you could say, then that backs up in your system. And for me, that was my main form of detox, apparently, was through my face. And that's what would make me break out. But since doing that, then everything cleared up. Never any issues there really ever again. I don't break out now. But it was something I never thought I would do, which is cut out beef. And I ended up cutting out beef altogether. I followed that diet very strictly for 5 years. And the reason I did it for 5 years is because I had heard that they consider cancer patients cured if they are 5 years in remission. So that was just kind of like my benchmark. I was like, if I can be in remission for 5 years, I'm going to consider myself cured. So I followed that blood type diet pretty strictly for those 5 years, even not eating ketchup. Like, ketchup was on my bad list. So, that was it. I was like, no ketchup for me. And that's how strict I was on it. No tomatoes, no salsa. Loves chips and salsa, but just meant cutting out a few of those things. Now that wasn't fun in the beginning, but again, just like anything else, just like with video, just like with getting your license or door knocking or cold calling or whatever it is you start out doing, it's always going to be awkward and more difficult in the beginning. It's just a matter of whether you stick with it or not and work past that awkward phase, and then things start to become second nature. And for me, it was tough, to cut out beef and change diet and not eat ketchup and salsa, but I just learned to work around it. And before too long, I didn't feel like I was missing out. And what I also realized, though, is I enjoyed my health way more than I enjoyed eating chips and salsa on a Friday night. And I was just thinking that short-term pleasure will keep me from my long-term gain of what I really want, which my biggest one at that time was just to be healthy. That was it. I wasn't thinking about money, anything else. I was just trying to be healthy. And, that changed my whole perspective on business as well. Now, the thing is I had a job at that time, and I ended up losing that job with the pharma company. I was with them for almost 8 years. And I lost that because after 90 days, they wanted me to come back to work after my medical leave, but I wasn't physically able to do that. And so that's whenever I learned I was probably never going to have a job again. So in my recovery, I had to start a business, a financial services business. And that's where I started to work with teachers on their retirement planning. I started working school hours. So I thought this was a great way for me to not overstress, not overwork. I only met with teachers during school hours, so that was like 9 to 5. But I would only meet with 3 to 5 a day. And that was really simple. Didn't really work evenings, didn't work weekends, didn't work summers, didn't work 2 weeks for Christmas, a week for Thanksgiving. It was great. It was perfect for what I needed to recover, get my feet, back under me, get stabilized again financially, because getting sick like that was a huge financial burden on me and my wife at the time. And so, but we were able to recover. Luckily, we had savings and everything else, which really saved us through that. So we didn't have to go into debt, but it drained quite a bit of our funds. And so I had to rebuild. And then starting a business, of course, that's always a little iffy in the beginning, but I started to do really well from the beginning for the next 5 years. But that's all I was focused on, was really making sure my health came first and foremost, not overworking, not overstressing. And I was extremely comfortable doing what I was doing. And I didn't have any real ambitions there to just try to become this mega superstar, this multimillionaire. It was just like, hey, doing really well. I was working 8 months of the year. My biggest year right before COVID, was about 280,000, probably small to some, a lot to others, but it was enough, because I was working 8 months, and then I was traveling. That's whenever I started to travel the world and realize, man, I'd been to Iraq, I had gotten deathly ill, and I realized after all of that, I'd never been anywhere in my life. I never visited except Mexico, from Texas and Iraq. Like, Iraq was the furthest I'd been away from home, and I'm like, I got to get to see all these other countries around here. And so I started to travel quite a bit and traveled to 24 countries inside of 3 years. And it was a great life, And then COVID happened and shut all the schools down. And, my business just kind of closed down. I had no idea, would schools ever reopen? Would I go back to that way of life? I wasn't sure. I mean, nobody was sure about anything. Travel shut down. I quit traveling. So that's where the change came. That's where the pivot happened to move into real estate, is because I was riding high there for 5 years. I was 100% healthy, feeling great, especially traveling. When you travel to 24 countries, several of them Central and South America too. I mean, I would eat the food. I would have fun. Never got sick. Never got travelers. Never got sick traveling. And so I knew my immune system was functioning at very high levels, which was great. And so, the thing is that here I was, 2020, all that work, last 5 years, kind of like the perfect scenario, the perfect lifestyle. And yeah, it was over. It was over just like that. And there I was, just like everybody else, sitting at home during the summer of 2020 going, all right, what's my next move? And that's where I really had to dig deep and start to figure out, what is my next move? What am I going to do? And of course, that's where my friends were coming to me. I have successful real estate friends, but I did not want to be a real estate agent. I will tell you that. I did not want to be a real estate agent. Just wasn't something that was appealing to me. Nope. didn't want to do it. But, whenever my other options started to fizzle out during the summer of 2020, which for those that know my story, or actually those that don't know my story, I'll just say real quickly, I spent over about $210,000 during the summer of 2020 to not be a real estate agent. That's how much I didn't want to be a real estate agent. I spent $160,000 on Amazon stores, 2 Amazon stores, invested almost $80,000 each into 2 Amazon stores, completely failed, bombed out. And I spent about another, I bought into this mentorship, $17,000. And then I I spent about $20,000 in courses. I started to buy all these investment courses because I thought, well, if real estate's an option, I would rather be an investor than a real estate agent. So I spent $20,000 on investor courses, wholesaling, fix and flip, all this type of stuff. And what I learned in those courses is that, you've got to cold call and door knock and send out postcard campaigns and, find your sellers and talk them into 50% off of so I was like, okay, well, that kind of sounds like being a real estate agent, and that's why I didn't want to be the agent, is because I was concerned about starting over and cold calling and door knocking and trying to establish my business and be this presence in the community, and I wasn't sure how, or that I wanted to do that. Actually, I didn't want to do that, which is why I avoided it. But once I realized no matter what I started at that time, I had to start from the ground up, then I was just going to have to do the work regardless. But this is where I started to think differently and say, okay, is there a way I could actually attract business versus pursue it? And that's what led me down the path of YouTube, which was just asking myself that simple question, but I asked it over and over and over again, which is, can I attract business? Can I attract business? Is there a way to do that? And so that led me down the path of YouTube. And of course, the rest is history from there. Completely changed my life, completely changed my business. And it's just been a huge blessing. And, and it's something that I really enjoy doing as well. But now health is still first and foremost for me. It's still the first thing I do in the morning. It's what I do throughout the day whenever I eat my meals. It's something in the evenings I think about. It is a central part of what I'm doing, and it's what allows me to function at high levels. Now, for the last 5 years, or actually before 2020, I had a perfect work-life balance. Perfect. You couldn't ask for anything more, at least in my opinion. I had a teacher's schedule, but 5 times the teacher's income, So to me, that was the dream job. But now I don't have that convenience right now. I'm rebuilding. And despite the success we've had so far, I still feel like we're building. And we have a little bit more to go. Now we're getting the right people in place, the right team members and systems and processes that I'm getting closer and closer to being where I want to be, which is a little bit more of the hands-off role on day-to-day operations, which will allow me to spend even more time in content, which is where I ultimately want to live. And that's what I need to do. But we've got some great team members in place. They're really getting a grip on everything. And so, I think that day's going to be coming soon. And, hopefully maybe even by the end of the year. So now expanding, investing in property, investing in multifamily, which is another dream of mine and something that I've been able to expand and grow into. But these long days and the hours and the travel, as much as we have been going to conferences as well. Like I spent an entire week this last week in Vegas. 3 podcasts and 3 speaking events. Inside of 1 week. But I'm able to do that and come home and get back on track on Monday and do everything that I did yesterday because I feel good. I'm healthy and I have the energy. So now yesterday morning and today was a little tougher to get out of bed just because time change again. That 2 hours will throw you off. And then but already adjusted back and back at it. But I know that's a foundation of my health, and that allows me to continue to do that. And I know whenever it's time to back off a little bit of that heavy workload later on, that I'll still continue to focus on my health and just continue to work on building my business and doing everything I can to be physically, mentally, and spiritually strong. So that is my little rant today on why health is so important. And whatever it is you're struggling with, know that I've been there. I don't know if what I've been through is worse or not as bad as what you're going through, but most of the time, what I went through was, it was horrific. And what's interesting is every time I talk about this, especially on stage or something like that, somebody will come up to me afterwards, at least one person every time, and says, "Thank you for sharing that part of your story, because I struggle with this, or I've got, my spouse struggles with this, or my kid struggles with this," or, and so they're asking questions and looking for answers. And it's really great to be able to help people on that front as well. So I think it's key to include these types of scenarios and discussions out there so that we can help people in all areas. And so, if you haven't been through, Iraq, if you haven't been through a major digestive disease, and if you haven't lost your entire business, your dream business in COVID, if those things haven't happened, then just know that you're in a better off situation. and if you don't feel like you're where you want to be, then you've got a head start, and you just have to work towards the goals you want. And it could be worse. That's sometimes we have to put those things in perspective and say, well, it's not as bad as this tough time I went through. And if you haven't gone through seriously tough times like that before, then that's where you have other people's stories and experiences to reference, and to say, oh, well, I remember somebody went through a lot worse than I'm going through right now. So if they made it through that, then I can make it through this. Sometimes we just have to remind ourselves those types of things. Just like going to Iraq and seeing a war-torn third world country, and the way people live. And then we come over here and people complain about America, and it's like, well, have you seen other parts of the world? And the way some people live, or they're forced to live, or it's crazy. That put a lot of things in perspective for me at a very young age. So something that I'm very grateful for, the opportunity, the time we live in, the country we live in, and we have the opportunity to take control of our health, our wealth, our spiritual situation. We have the freedoms to do that. So it really comes down to our choices and what we choose to do. And will you choose short-term pleasure over long-term gain? I'm trying to play the long game on everything. I believe I can live till 120. And maybe, who knows, with medicine and technology the way it's going, well, that may be on the short side. So the way I see it, I'm only 1/3 of the way through my life right now. 1/3. So I still got 2/3, a majority of my life left to go. And I truly believe 120 will be, at least, I may be undershooting. Who knows? With AI and everything else, could be interesting over the next 20 years to see what happens. But, we've grown just in the last 5 years. I believe they say more than the last 100 years. So that's the compound effect. Medicine, technology, these types of things are compounding at an astonishing rate now. And AI and Web3, all this stuff is just helping it compound even more. So who knows? It's going to be very interesting to see what comes out over the next 20 years. And it's a really interesting time. But, for me, health is first and foremost. That if my health is in order, then I know I can pretty much handle everything else. And that's just something that I encourage you today as well. If you're not exactly where you want to be wealth-wise, maybe start with your health and make sure that is in line. And if you're not where you want to be health-wise, then you probably just haven't learned what you need to learn yet, which means you just need to seek out some more information. Whether that's increasing endurance, reducing body weight, increasing shape, maybe you're happy, getting more, whatever the situation may be. You just have to look at it, and the answers are out there. You can hyper-learn health very quickly. Do some studying, watch some YouTube videos, read some books over the next 30, 60 days, and you'll be well on your way. Well, Chrissy, anything you want to add in there? I know.
Hey man, I love your room here about health and wealth. I'm in real estate and also wellness. A lot of us being real estate practicing, we don't take it. We realize we don't need our body. We do need our bodies to go out and perform, just like an athlete. When an athlete blows a knee out or blows a shoulder, their career is over with. And I do a lot of studying on the wellness industry, and the World Obesity Organization saying in the next 10 to 12 years, we're going to have a major issue. It's going to be worse than coronavirus. What it's saying is about 4 billion people are going to be impacted with obesity and all the chronic illnesses, because we as a nation, are not taking care of our bodies. And, getting real food, that's the thing. A lot of people, we eat the fast food, that don't have any nutrients. And I always ask people, where are they getting their nutrition from? Because most people, they're eating fast food, they're eating on the go, and they're not eating real food. So that's where the body is starving. Just like the body is just like a car. A vehicle needs tune up, oil change, and need maintenance. And a body needs maintenance too, but we're not getting real food. And a lot of the toxic stuff around us, it could be our deodorant, it could be our water. And see, wellness is a lifestyle, being aware of everything. And when you do that, it'll help you live long. My mother would be 85 in October, and that's what I've done with her to get her to 85, is all of her brothers and sisters are dead. She's the only one living out of the 7. But she done something 20 so years ago. I started taking charge, getting involved with that as far as water filtration system, air treatment system, eating quality food, high quality fruits and vegetables, taking high quality supplements, being aware of the air in their home, being aware of the people, the movies, the music, all that stuff impact you. And you got to be in the right soil if you want to prosper. And it says only 3 to 5% of the whole world lead a healthy lifestyle. So in reality, we have a lot of people that's hurting health-wise. And I like what Les Brown says too. When he got prostate cancer, he said one sickness could wipe you out. And I seen that with a real estate agent here. She was a top producer here in this area. She had been in practice about over 30 years, and she got sick, and that was the end of her real estate business. And we have to really get involved with nutrition and water and people, and that's the most important part of real estate is us. We are the most valuable piece of property. And if that is not maintenance and taken care of, the other stuff won't matter. But I just love what you're sharing, man. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great, Chris. Thank you for sharing. And your number one asset is your ability to earn income. and if you're sick, that could be impacted in a serious way. And that's what happened to me at 33. And I was unable to earn income during that time. And that's what I also learned this time around is that I didn't have the right systems and processes and leverages in place as well, which if you get removed from your business and your business stops, you don't have a business, you have a job. And you probably just work for yourself. And so you have a business whenever you can be removed and it keeps working and it keeps producing. And you should set that up as much as possible for these exact same situations. But I agree with Chris 100%. It's I follow a lot of stuff with Gary Brecka. I'm on the 10X Health System protocol right now, which really really took me to the next level as well with getting my genetics and my blood tested. So genetics, to know what insufficiencies I had just in my genes, which the thing is that you can eat all the food you want, but if you don't have the right genes to turn what he likes to call raw materials, which raw materials are just vitamins and minerals, if you don't have the right genes to convert those raw materials into what your body uses, you could be deficient. And whenever I first tested with him, as good as I have felt, and I'm as healthy as I've ever been, and I'm in my 40s, I'm 43 now, but when I met Gary last year, I was 42 years old, and I thought I was in pretty good shape. And when he tested me, he was like, you're probably functioning at about 60% of your potential. He's like, but I'm going to get you on the right supplements, not medications, but the right supplements based on your genetics and your blood test to get you up to that 100%. And it was a huge change, a drastic change that I saw just within 30, 60 days. Just getting on the right supplements instead of over supplementing, because I was that type of person. Every time I heard of a new supplement or, a new thing, this is the new thing, to make you better, I'd be like, I just add it to my regimen. But the thing is like, I may be getting what I need from food regardless, but I may not be getting what I need from the rest of it based on my genes. So even something simple like that, but I haven't drinking tap water in, years. But I know that's something that, Gary brought up the other day too, is he said there is zero amount of safe fluoride and chlorine, period, that you should be ingesting in your body. Zero. But yet it's in the tap water. That's what treats the tap waters. So, he said just by doing that, cutting out tap water, getting rid of seed oils. This is something else I'm also looking into a lot right now, but pretty much easy to eliminate if you eliminate a lot of processed foods. Seed oils, canola oil, sunflower oil, all that stuff. If you pick up a bag of healthy chips, so to speak, and it's got sunflower, canola, any seed oil other than avocado or coconut oil, then it's not good. Highly processed, highly transformed. Not good for you at all. Very rancid. He said that, and then also eating inorganic fruit. Those are the three things you could change today that will drastically change your health. Which is cutting out tap water, getting rid of seed oils, and then stop buying inorganic fruits. He just said there was a new study recently that they got strawberries, all kinds of strawberries from different supermarkets, and squeezed them. They pressed the juice out of the strawberries, and there was enough leftover and residue pesticides for them to respray crops with. That's how heavy the chemical content was in those inorganic fruits. And now if you ever walk into the supermarket and you see all those nice shiny apples, like even apples, they have that wax coating on them. And that's why the inorganic or the organic ones are small and not as shiny because they're organic. We're not supposed to have these ginormous, super shiny apples. That's just not the way. You don't find them in nature that way. So they modify and do these types of things, and just all that stuff adds up. Now, it could affect people in different ways. Yes, you could be the 95-year-old smoker and drinker and outlive everybody, and I think that's just genes, but I wasn't that way. I was a lot more susceptible to my environment. So I didn't have the immune system at the time. I didn't have the genes for me to just do whatever I want whenever I wanted. But yeah, is there people out there that eat whatever they want and never gain a pound? Yep. Do you have that grandpa that smoked, every day and still kicking at 95? Yeah, probably, but few and far between. But at the same time, for the rest of us that don't have those types of genes, I think it's just you want to be very mindful of what you're consuming and how you're doing that, and just the education and the study and the research that's coming out now is great. And I love the fact that there's a lot of people out there that are able to talk about this now, so it's just some things that you want to consider. But in order to enjoy your wealth, I believe, to its fullest, and if that's what we're working towards, I think we're all working towards freedom. Now, whatever that is for you, that's your definition, but I think we're all working towards freedom, which means we're not worried about money. We're able to do the things we want to do. And, we're comfortable. We're comfortable with either the income that we've built up or the amount of money in the bank or the passive income we built, whatever the case may be. Once we get to that point, that's true freedom, because then we're able to really do everything we want to do and not worry about how the bills are going to get paid. But if you're not healthy, what's the point? If you can't enjoy that, I could have been the richest person in the world, and that time when I was 33, not a single penny would have mattered to me, except I wouldn't have worried about money for all the medical treatments, but still, if I would have went to see all the traditional doctors, they would have told me the same thing. But I was able to venture out and find different paths. But I just know that at that time, all I was concerned about was getting better. I wasn't concerned about what car I drove, what house I lived in, what the neighbors thought of me. I was just trying to get better, and it was survival mode. So, anyways, that's.
Hey, Levi, it's Chris. You were sharing about the water and also the shower filter. I got a chance to talk to Dr. Batman Jello before he died, he's got a website called watercure.com. But also you want to put a shower filter on your shower. That's more important, they say, than your drinking water, because your skin is the largest organ in the world. And when you shower, that goes into your hair, into your skin. And you can buy those filters off Amazon. They're about $50, but that's also important. And also on that organic fruit, if you might see it, there's a new thing, Appeal, APEL. There's an organization that's trying to put a coating around organic produce to make it the shelf life last longer. And Bill Gates is one of the big investors in that Appeal. If you go to the grocery store and see that Appeal sticker on an organic product, but you constantly have to be watching your food. And Yuka also is an app, UKA, where you can scan different products at the store if you're buying cookies or something, and it'll tell you if that product is good or bad. Then also it'll give you 4 or 5 alternatives. But these food companies know people are getting more aware with all the apps and all these social rooms. They're going to get sneakier and sneakier with content in those products. So if you really want to be healthy, you have to have self-awareness all the time. Because I bought my son some organic ice cream. Everything on the box was correct. It had no GMO, all the perfect things. But the one thing it had was 18 grams of sugar. And in his little hand, that's about 2 or 3 scoops. So every time he eats that, it's like eating 3 or 4 teaspoons of sugar. And those are the things people don't understand about food. Because most of your stuff out there is loaded with sugar, and sugar ignites all those chronic problems. It's like throwing fuel on the fire. Even if you go to some of these things that the hospital hold, these cancer runs, and they'll have Gatorade and candy and cookies right outside of that event. So you really have to be self-aware and start making it part of your process of learning, just like real estate. Investing in real estate, you got to learn the whole game. It's not just one thing that'll make you successful. Thank you.
Yeah, great point. All right, well, I'm coming up on to close out, but yeah, Chris, appreciate you jumping in here and giving that input. What's funny too is on that, Gary Brecka said this the other day. Is he was like, look, he was talking about diabetes, and he goes, you want to keep someone diabetic? He said, I would feed them everything that's on the American Diabetes Association website, that breakfast. He's like, they recommend for breakfast a big glass of orange juice, oatmeal, and yogurt and fruit or something like that. He said there's like 100 grams of sugar in that thing. Immediately spikes their blood sugar. Guess what they got to do? They got to get their insulin and everything else to go on there. So it's interesting what can be recommended as safe out there. And then, yes, Atif, you jumped on stage.
Hello. Good morning.
Good. Something to add?
I must have hit unmute by accident.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good.
Yeah, I jumped on a little bit late, just dropped off my kids, but I did appreciate, I think it was Chris's comments about food and things like that. And then Levi heard you talking about, when you were 33, and of course I saw the video about your challenge during that time, that season of your life. About a year and a half ago, my wife was actually bedridden for like a year. So it was tough. So when you say, when you're talking about you would have given anything, man, I know my prayers were heard, because I would have given my own health for her to just have a straight good month. So I've seen somebody, really down and out like that, and nothing at that time mattered. How many escrows? I had nothing. All that mattered was she was able to get up out of bed and take care of our kids, and it was a tough time. So yeah, health is definitely wealth, and I think we take it for granted until it's too late.
Yeah, I definitely want to be proactive, and if you haven't had any health issues, you don't want them, trust me. So it's better to be proactive and start educating yourself, stay in the gym, and man, just be mindful of what you eat. I mean, I believe diet is everything. I mean, if not 90% of everything. So there's a huge opportunity there. Yep.
Well, what I will say is this. So in December, I'm fairly healthy, been always fairly healthy. My two passions in life have always been, since I was 21, has been real estate and health and wellness. And so I took a part-time position as a personal trainer just to be in the gym and the environment, and that was all fun. But the information and our data and what we now know has grown so much in the last 10 years. It's like, so one of the things that Jeremy back in he's the most challenging thing for a man until learn. And so at the end of last year, man, I had inflammation in my body. I wasn't feeling good. I'm like, man, well, how, 36 at the time. I don't know, just feeling radically.
Hey, Atif, we're losing you. You're cutting in and out.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a bad reception. Might have lost you completely now. Well, all right. Well, sorry, Atif. I don't know if you're able to. I'm about to close up shop, though. I've got a hard stop. I've got to jump, though. I really appreciate the conversation. Happy to continue this some other time, although I don't really hold rooms that often on health. But, that's I'm always open to discuss it regardless. But I appreciate Chris and Atif, your contributions, and you never know. Yeah, it looks like he's a young man, a young family. So, if that happened with his wife, again, whatever the situation was, we just never know. And so we want to be as preventative and proactive as possible, in my opinion, and that's what's going to translate into our business. It's what's going to make us feel, ready to take on the challenges that we have to face. And I think the better we are health-wise, then the better that we'll be on the wealth-wise, and you'll get to enjoy it. So thank you for joining us today, and we will see you next week.
Thank you for joining us on today's podcast. If you're interested in partnering with us to access our YouTube course and coaching at no cost, schedule a call at passiveprospectingpartner.com.